There, now I'm recording. Okay. Dude, stop doing that. You're already good enough at one thing. Don't be practicing
What's that?
beatboxing. At lettering. We don't need you being good at beatboxing too. No more beatboxing. I'm just joking.
Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glanz. This week we discuss the realities of earning passive income from your art and digital products. We take a look at how passive income often isn't all that passive, and the gritty realities of what it really takes to be successful. Without further ado, let's get into the show. So this week we're back with part 3 of our selling products chat. That's a really bad wording for that. Not feeling very articulate today. Selling products and things like that. Yeah, and as promised, for this final part of this mini-series within the podcast, we wanted to talk about the realities of what it's really like earning passive income. And I can speak for myself here. Don't know if you guys feel the same. Doesn't often feel very passive.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
I don't think it's ever passive.
And I think there's a huge misconception around that. We might have touched on it way back when on the show, but I think it's certainly worth retreading today. But passive income, I think, gets sold as this thing where it's like you set up this funnel system and money magically flows through every month and you sit on the beach, drink pina coladas and wait for the paycheck to arrive each day.
That's right.
And don't lift a finger, right?
Yeah. No, but that's not the truth, is it?
Yeah, we wouldn't be here cranking out this podcast every week if it was that easy. This is real work.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not truly. Yeah, you're right, Tom. I think, Tom, you had put it one time. Well, I can't remember what you said, but I've, for instance, heard a lot lately when I've been talking to people calling it more of a side hustle. A lot of people call it, but it's not passive. What it really is as opposed to a job where you're typically a person who is hired and you trade your time in exchange for a service. You're just going out of that familiar area that most designers do, and you're making something once, like a cereal company make cereal or whatever. And that's a horrible analogy. Instead of trading time for money, you're making something once and then trading it for money forever.
later. Yes.
With upkeep.
Yep. But I think the broad description often is you're not directly trading your time for money, which I know that's pretty much what you just said, Dustin. But I don't even think necessarily people think about it being like a forever thing. It's more simply stepping away from I work this many hours, therefore I get paid this exact amount. It's
Right.
the idea that you could. Often it results in a sucky hourly rate, right? I've had passive income where I might have worked 15 hours during the day and then I go to sleep and I earn $10 overnight while I'm sleeping. And that felt like passive income in the sense that I wasn't working while I earned the $10. But obviously the hourly rate on that is horrendous.
Basically, you're making an asset and selling it, you're making an asset.
Yeah, you are. But I think the misconception is that it's just going to set you up. And I've had so many things where I've put in the work and it's either earned me nothing or it's earned me a tiny, tiny amount that has definitely not been permanent. It might have only sold for a week or something and then fizzled out.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you create a product that it took you, gosh, I don't know how many hours, say like 3-4 weeks to create, you need to sell that many. You're only selling it for $10 or $10. You need to sell so many before you can actually break even. And then only after you've reached that amount that actually pays you back for your time, only then is a profit.
Mm-hmm.
But to reach that point, sometimes, as I think what you're saying, Tom, you don't ever reach that point. Sometimes it's a crash and burn product, and you put in all this energy and you just haven't made your money back.
On the upside, though, you there's no cap. So as opposed to your hourly, or even if you do a flat rate, there's a cap. You can get, if you get the right traffic and right product, you can make, pretty much
exactly
unlimited.
And then there's some products that you haven't really, you've obviously put in your expertise, but maybe the effort wasn't as much because it was a quicker product to create and it just took off. And it kind of like, it's like that whole, you win some, you lose some kind of thing. But I think what's the scary part is, if this is how you make your living, is that there's no guarantee. Obviously there's no guarantee always in most jobs, but this seems a little bit more risky because you're basically investing or taking a risk up front before you actually know you're going to earn the money back. And I don't think, if this is your full-time income, you need a little bit of a stomach for that.
The thing is, I think freelance in general is just a risky, risky business. Because like I've had, like we say, we've been in the past about clients not paying up or taking, if you're working for a brand, sometimes they have like we'll pay you in 3 months or something like that. And so having that steady, even though it's like a stream compared to a river, which might be client work, so it's sort of much fuller but shorter. But either way, it's sort of like you have the risk, but then you have it. I find it's more fulfilling than being employed, but not that's me personally, my opinion. And so I think with passive income, it's nice having a stream that comes in, knowing that you are right, even though it's hard to tell until you get to the end of the month how much you actually fully put in. But having that small stream coming in rather than waiting for the client to pay is, for me, less stressful, I think.
It is, especially when that covers your bills and stuff like that. It's a sweet feeling. We have some products that we've developed in-house that, did great back in the day, and now they just tick along. And it can be very small amounts. So we have some where it will literally be like $50 or $100 a month from a single product. And there is something really satisfying where I walk in the kitchen and go, all of that coffee and all of that stuff there has just been paid for by something we did 5 years ago.
When I first started and my baby had just been born, I remember this was when it was just starting to kind of get that, momentum going. I remember going to Target to buy, I was so excited about my little girl, even though we had stuff, I was going to buy her a new teddy bear and I think a couple cute little onesie outfits for her. And I remember grabbing them, and as I was grabbing them, I was getting notifications on my phone for sales. And when I went to check out, the amount of this, how much I had to pay for what I bought, was less than the amount I had just made. And I was like, whoa, I made money buying stuff at Target. And it wasn't a ton, I just bought a couple of things, but it was amazing. It's a mind-blowing moment, even if it's $50, $60.
That's incredibly cool. And I think until you've lived that, you have no idea how cool it feels.
I know.
It was, it's such a game-changing thing. My first experience of that was my one and only job. I often tell people I've never had a job. I actually, have I told you guys this? When I was like 15 years old, and I went and worked in a local supermarket.
I don't know.
And I was probably their worst employee of all time.
No doubt.
I think I only worked Saturdays, and I think I quit after 3 weeks. And I was atrocious. People would ask me where stuff was because I was stacking the shelves. And I'd be like, I literally have no idea. How am I meant to remember 5,000 items? I just couldn't do it. When you get the big cages packed full of stuff that you're going to put on the shelves, rather than walk backwards with it for health and safety, I was walking forwards with it so I couldn't see over it. And I plowed into an old lady and smashed her into the floor and just felt horrendous. I was picking her up being like, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Just this terrified kid. She luckily was very understanding. But anyway, my point is, I was at this job which I hated with a really mean manager, and I was like, I don't think I'm cut out for real work. And that's when I was getting into all this online stuff. And I would go home and work out that I passively had earned more than I would earn at minimum wage working there.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I was like, I'm just going to go do that because I like doing that stuff. And this is hell on earth.
Yeah, and I mean, you literally do earn a living while you sleep. I mean, that's not a fantasy. It's true. But obviously, you've put in the work.
Yeah.
To get there.
Well, like in the United States, when I go to bed, you guys and the folks, well, even you, Lisa, in South Africa, you guys are all waking up. So then people from your lands are buying stuff while I'm sleeping. So then I wake up and I'm like, let's see who bought stuff in. What I really think to my head is, let's see who bought stuff in England overnight. But I mean, it's from all sorts of places, yeah. And sometimes it's a lot. And you're like, oh, good morning to me. And sometimes it's nothing, and then you want to drink in the morning. You're like, my life is over. This thing is collapsing. They found me out.
Here's an idea which I guarantee none of us have done to this extent, but I really love the thought of it. You talked before about working out almost an hourly rate that comes from these projects. So if you work for a month, maybe you need the product to earn $4,000 to break even or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see for each product a point at which the total earnings from all channels broke even. And you could see that for every product that you've done. Okay, this one broke even after 2 weeks, this 8 months, etc., etc., etc.
I've never done that.
And some might never break even. So you can be like, okay, well, 80% of my products have made a profit, 20% made a loss. Overall, here's my net gain. On average, they break even after a month. And so you're like, oh, I'm going to make my money back on my time. Or, I don't know. It would be really interesting to see that as a visual, like a little infographic.
Yeah. I've definitely thought that, like, because, I have, like, for instance, contractors. So I'll definitely, like, tally up in my head and be like, when is it my money?
Yeah. And you shouldn't have a little celebration, like 6.5 weeks in. You're like, oh, I just, made my first $20 because all the rest was cost.
At the beginning of the month, I literally do that. I watch the different, places where money comes in from, and then I'm like, everyone's covered. Now it's mine.
Yeah.
Now, what I find hard, which I suppose Dustin doesn't, is that the fact that I'm like, yeah, I've earned however many dollars. Then I'm like, but then I have to transpose that into UK pounds. Then I've got to take away the fact that PayPal takes a massive cut. Then I've got the fact that I've got to siphon off money for tax. And then you're like, oh, maybe I'll wait to have that coffee then.
It's so different. Like, I remember being younger and it was literally, I made as much money as I earned. Because it's like, here's what I charge for an hourly rate freelancing, and that goes pretty much in my pocket.
Because you didn't have to pay tax.
Well, I think when I started out, I was like below that threshold even. I'm talking very early days, but the costs of actually operating as a proper legit business, even if it's just you, they're crazy. And in terms of what we're doing, it'll be like tens and tens and tens of thousands on like subscriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they're punishing you for making them tax revenue. I always feel like that they tax, they're like, okay, now you get the state tax. And by the way, you need to figure it out, like where I live, for every single county. And then you're going to get your federal taxes. And then you're going to have your license, you have to renew your licenses for blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, seems like I'm making you more money and you, for some reason, punish me for it. It's like you're trying to encourage me not to.
It's just how it works.
Yeah. I mean, it's that whole thing of like every dollar you earn, you're actually probably earning 40 cents from it because it goes,
I wish.
The rest just goes, the rest just goes everyone else, and that's even before tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, back to kind of the passive nature of passive income then. What can we give that's an eye-opener? Because we kind of touched on how awesome it is to earn money in your sleep, and that's definitely the coolest side. But what is tough about it? I'll give you one example, right, to kick off. I know that back in the day when I thought it was easier, I was so sold on the concept of passive income, I would do all these hypothetical formulas where I was like, well, if I can just, sell this many each month, especially if it was like a recurring thing, and add 10 people a day, then in a year's time, I'll be a millionaire. And it was so naive, but I was like, oh, well, that's clearly how it works. Now all I need to do is funnel those people in, and great. And
because $3,000 a day and you're over a millionaire. I mean,
Exactly.
before taxes.
So yeah, and when you start breaking that down, saying, well, if I just pick up 2 new members a day, then that quickly gets, you know what I mean? But the world doesn't work like that. If it was that easy,
No.
everyone would be running around being a millionaire.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's anything but easy. I would say, as we touched on early on, you will probably be making a loss. You will be putting a lot of upfront time and not breaking even at all. And I think that can be quite galling, especially if you're coming from like a background as a freelance designer or something like that. You'll be used to getting a certain hourly rate. And suddenly you need to accept the fact your hourly rate might have just gone from $100 to 50 cents. And that's no exaggeration. Like you will literally work as hard as you will on a client project that will earn you thousands, and it might make you nothing or $50 or whatever it might be. And essentially you are like eating that cost as a just part of the journey, learning the ropes, getting better. And I think that can be really hard when you're quite established and you are talented, but you jump into the whole passive income selling products thing. It's like back to square one. So you have to eat humble pie, right? It's like, well, I've been flying high with clients, but you have to realize actually I don't really have a clue about how to sell products on the back of that. I haven't built up an audience around that. It takes a long time until you have fans and followers, you have a base to promote to, you build up the right partnerships, you know what you're doing with the product creation. Like all of that stuff takes time.
And that's the real thing. The real thing is if you're not cautious with, if you don't think about some serious business stuff, you're in big trouble, because you really have to think about, how am I going to get people to keep coming back and buying from me? Where do I find more customers? How do
how do you keep them? How do you it's that whole like building a brand, and as artists and designers we run away from that kind of stuff, but it's essential. It's I mean, if you're really not willing to do that as a passive income earner, I think you're in big trouble.
I was just going to say, I think that means it's probably not for you. If you're like, well, I want to do it, but I really don't want to do the marketing stuff and the business stuff.
It's not like, going to happen then.
You 100% have to do that. Then the dumbest thing you can ever do is make the product and think it's going to take care of itself. And no one's going to take care of you. No marketplace is going to take care of you. No one person is going to take care of you. You have to spread it out amongst other people. Hey, I'm not putting my eggs all in just your basket, man. I love you. I would have you on a boat to rescue me, but seriously, right? Like you got to like spread it out, because you just don't know, and you really have to be in control of your own thing to some degree, because
that is a very good point.
No.
Yeah, seriously, like you've got a family to support. I would never tell you like, only sell through design cuts. I don't think you should do your own website anymore. Like equally, you never know what don't know what, but something catastrophic could happen with your own website, and at least you got fallback in other places. Like it's just smart.
That's when I'd call you and be like, buddy, this is when I really need you to do me a solid, my friend.
I think they say you need 7 streams of income to be properly supported as someone who has passive income, because you can have 1 or 2 of those break down and you can still sort of sustain your your lifestyle in terms of paying bills and buying food and stuff like that. And I think I don't know, I'm looking at mine, I have maybe like 2 or 3.
What are your 3? So you're selling products?
Or no, I just like talking about design cuts. There's my own shop.
Oh, okay, got you. So you're doing the same thing but with multiple channels.
Okay. See, I've heard that 7 thing too, but I think of it as completely different businesses in case something happens. So I think I got Retro Supply, I've got passive income for designers, which doesn't make that much now, but it's prime to. Knock on wood. And then I've got one other one that I don't want to mention. But yeah, cool. I've heard 2. You need 7. You need 7 things. I've heard that too.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. I think that's insane. I don't
7
agree
businesses
with that at all?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think 7 businesses could be tough, but you could have 7 income streams. And the thing is, they don't all need to be huge. And 7's arbitrary, right? Even 3 is better than 1.
Yeah.
And my immediate reaction, and this is probably where your head's at, Lisa, is that sounds incredibly overwhelming because even 1 is stressful. But if you look at like Ian, for example, his main thing is selling products. he also does the occasional bit of client work. He also
Yeah.
gets some ad money from YouTube. And all of these things kind of work together. They're not completely disparate. It's not like he's off running a clothes shop on the side
Yeah.
of his lettering business or something.
Little hot dog
Barnard
stand in the
design.
corner
Sure.
of Clark.
Yeah,
Somewhere in Clark.
exactly.
I get it, but
And the point is, like, the YouTube thing alone certainly couldn't support you, but it's the same concept of having a diversified stock portfolio. The point is, there's more capacity for failure and it's lower risk.
And the thing is, it just opens up, like, and the thing is, with different streams coming in, just like with the weather, one might dry up, another one might fill up and become bigger. So, like, for me,
Sure.
say, like YouTube, like, I suppose there's YouTube, and then that spills out into AdSense, it spills out to sponsored videos or product placement, stuff like that. My income on YouTube is like, what, $75 per month.
Good
You know.
Lord, son. Congratulations. No, but that's actually really hard to do. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Because it's not really worth just that much, because you can also sell to people, market to people. You've built a lot of trust.
Yeah, and I suppose, through that, and as you build, you may then get some, and I've had a couple of sponsored videos where I've got a couple of $100 for a video, which still doesn't pay for the actual, because it takes me like between a day and 2 days to do a video. So,
Exactly.
that still doesn't equate to financially beneficial for doing it. Not that I haven't done a YouTube video for about 2 months now, but because of moving into here. But it's all those, one might build up while the other one draws down, and it sort of swaps around, if you get what I mean. So things like talking about, it doesn't just continually stay at the same. I think the misconception with passive income is that you earn like what it could be like $2,000 per month, and it's going to stay there until the end of time. But the problem is, what I found in my experience is if I don't release a product, then that goes down at a quicker rate than if I did release a product, or that might go up depending on how successful the product is, because you need a way for people to find your products, and pushing out other products is another way of generating interest in the stuff you've already got. Because you go to a store or you buy a bit of item and you go, well, what else have that store got? That because I really like these, like this t-shirt or this pair of jeans. You then go back and see what else they've got. So
I have a different. Sorry, Tom. It looks like you were about to say something.
Sorry, Lisa. Just before I forget, Ian really made me think of something there, and it's actually the least passive thing in the world. What we do, because if you stop releasing stuff, your earnings go backwards, and if you keep releasing stuff, often they maintain.
Yeah.
They won't astronomically just grow and grow and grow. Often you need to really mix it up and try something different. So if you're like in your guys' case and our case, I guess, if you just continue to put out products, often your earnings literally just will plateau to an extent unless you drastically change something in your business or have a breakout hit product. But as Ian just said, if you stop doing that even for like a month, quite quickly you can see them go backwards. And so that's the tough side of it, where it doesn't feel that stable or steady on the back of that. And it doesn't feel that passive either, because you're constantly feeling like you need to be working on it and tending to it.
Yeah, you feel like you're
Otherwise it
chasing
goes
something
backwards straight away.
continuously.
When you sort of have to put stabilizers in there, so marketplaces, you can't guarantee what's going to happen. It can be price wars down to a low price, and you don't want to go that low. But for instance, let's say something that I look at a lot of times with my business is I say, okay, here's how much traffic I know comes in each day. Here's how much comes in each month. Here's what my conversion rate is on that. And then I'll have like an autoresponder, and I'll say, okay, and I know how much just from naturally organic traffic converts to. And then you say, okay, if these numbers are staying in that area and the traffic is coming from the same sources, I can relatively guess that these numbers and income is going to stay the same or increase based on doing those things. So point being, you have to like understand why things go up and down. And it's really hard to understand that when it's a black box of, say, a marketplace. And that's why you really should have your own central hub.
You don't get access to the insights.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Lisa?
No, I was just gonna say that I mean, I agree that diversifying, that is still related to what you do. Like as you said with Ian, he does his videos, and that's why I did I didn't only do the skill share to earn money. In fact, I didn't do it for that reason. But it was a good exercise to broaden your market, like reach new people, potentially. But I actually apply. Maybe I'm stupid, but I actually apply the diversifying thing, whatever, within my type of products that I create. So I apply that strategy within the actual passive income situation. What I mean is, I have I'd like to think that my portrait creator is like, my hit product. So I have one big product like that I continuously update because I know it's going to attract. It's like it has a longevity and it's always going to make, hopefully make me money. So it's worth actually putting effort in. Then I have like the quick fire ones that are, that I know are going to be like popular for a couple of months and then they might die off and then just tick over. And then you kind of come up with the in-between ones that you think are seasonal. So what I mean is like each product has a strategy. Like, is this my long-term product? Is this going to be my product that's going to take my business, keep it going? Or is this a quick fire for a burst of income? So that's
a good point, because I sometimes, like, some of my products, I make them smaller purposefully because I need to get, it's like what we say about posting. Just don't worry, just keep posting. And, because what you do is it brings more people back into your shop, how it being regularly popping up in a marketplace or in on your shop, on your feed, wherever it may be, or you're popping up in a bundle. So that's that way. But it could be like another hit product, but you don't know until you release it.
Yes.
Because, like, for instance, my second best-selling font that props up my company took me 3 days to put together, which is, when we're talking about, sort of stuff like it didn't take long to hit the, the sort of, the hourly rate to break even on that one. Whereas I spent like ages on one and like, went through like loads of resources from my grandparents and scanning them in. And I like,
do you mind sharing which one that was?
It was what was it called? It was like a World War II style one, vintagey.
Like how to create the posters type thing.
No, that one did well, and this one was like what was it? I called it.
Was it a font or an action?
No, it was like a set with textures and had a special thing to turn. You could like make old style sort of war posters from it, and
that is the one.
I remember that,
and that didn't do as well as something that took me hardly any time at all. So I was really proud of it. It did all right, but it just didn't like the amount of time I spent on it and like research I went into trying to get the sort of look I wanted.
The look right.
And then, I go and I do another one and it just like put it together quite quickly and it doesn't like much better. I'm just like,
and it's so hard, isn't it? Because it's a constant balancing act between, and we touched on this before, I think, in the first episode in this mini series, but between finding the right niche and the broad market appeal. But sometimes you can get a niche that is really profitable, but other times you get a niche which is too limited, and it's really hard to gauge that. So you could go like, oh, vintage design, well, that's a pretty big niche. That's validated by the fact Dustin does really well in it, etc., etc., etc. But then that doesn't do as well as like some watercolor pack you might have done, which is kind of playing the field, but that goes against not following the trend. You know what I mean? There's no rule book, and often there's no rhyme or reason.
The thing is, there's one thing that I do often, which is I have to make it just because I want to make it, even though I know it might not be popular. It's like
I also have that.
That's awesome though.
I have to like I have to sort of release this sort of creative product within me, even though like I think who's going to buy it? Not a great deal of people, but I just need it out there because it's like it's sort of getting it out of your system.
Yes.
knowing
because you can't seem to move on.
you're just like, I'm just
until
stuck
it's
with
done.
this.
I know, I get it. I have the same thing. Yeah.
And and that's there's one of those products that it might be like, I'm doing this for my sort of selfish reasons, and I'm just doing it for me because I really enjoy the effect it gives or the process of going to do this, even though I think, I don't know, I hadn't a clue if anyone will buy it or not. And sometimes no one buys it, and you just think, well, the thing is, the experience you go through is worth sometimes that money, because you just like, you maybe happen to find something that you were doing while you were doing it, and then that turns out to be a different product further down the road. But I think sometimes you have to go through them, and it's like going through a hard client. You learn so much of what went right, what went wrong, that then sometimes that makes a better product down the road. But you just have to.
I also feel like to tack on to that, sometimes we release products that I kind of think of as like freak flag products, where they're just like a way of advertising that we're weird or we're different. I don't expect that it will do well. One like classic example. So we released this Lutner font. We didn't think it would do that well. We thought maybe it would, but it did not do particularly well. But we made this video with our friend Aaron, who went around and tried to trade, the printed out letters for fruits and vegetables, and like in a farmer's market. And then he went onto the streets, and
which was hilarious.
And he had random people come up and look at the font, and he was like, "I have good news for you. It like comes with like 26 letters, and like it has an exclamation point." It didn't do particularly well in terms of financially, but it did fantastic.
I remember how excited you were though.
Oh, I was
You were showing me. You were like a kid. You were like, "Look at what we made."
It was so fun, and it just goes like those kind of things show we're different. And I think when you do that kind of thing, it just shows people I'm interested in what I'm doing. I'm doing things that I think are fun, and people remember it even if they don't buy it.
Also, that's kind of like an investment in yourself. So not necessarily into your company, but just as a creative, it's an investment into yourself. So it's not a waste of time.
No, not at all. In fact, sometimes it's the most fun thing ever. Yeah.
We had the same thing. I think I mentioned with Jeremy Child's paper pack.
Oh yeah.
And it certainly wasn't a flop. It sold decently, but it didn't set the world on fire. And we kind of knew that might be the case because it's
which
quite
is weird because it was made out of paper. But anyway. Stupid, sorry.
Get out.
Oh my God,
Stupid American jokes.
And yeah, with that, like, we had so much fun making that. It remains to this day one of my favorite packs ever. And similar to your freak flag thing, Dustin, I felt so proud to put that out there and be like, we had a blast making this. It was so much fun. And it's similar to some of our least popular bundles. Often it's because they're a bit more niche, but they make the people who do buy them so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't care that it might have got half the sales that you typically would, because that number of people are like, this is so my thing. And if you only stuck to the mainstream, then you'd be generic and boring, and you'd never cater to the people with peripheral interests.
Perfect example. When you released that paper pack, Suzanne, who works with me, she was like, you have to see this. She loves paper art. She loves it. She's fantastic at it. She sells it on Etsy. And when she saw that, she's like, you need to see this. This is amazing. And she showed it to me, and she loved it. So I mean,
cool to hear.
for people like her, and there are definitely is a whole tribe of people that love that kind of paper stuff, they will check back on your site for a long time because they're like, but he does put out paper stuff, even though, whatever, like he will do it,
That's true.
It just makes people
does
love you
Suzanne
more.
listen to the podcast ever?
Suzanne?
Yeah, does she listen to the show ever?
No, she hears plenty of my voice. She doesn't want to hear my voice more.
Yeah.
I thought it would be written into the contract.
Yeah, force her.
We've talked about this a lot. She's like, it would be so weird to hear your voice on this, and also I hear enough of your voice.
Really?
Someone tried putting a podcast on the office speakers earlier, and we had to turn it off mainly because it's too distracting compared to background music.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so tempted just to like force them to listen to our show just to be the worst possible time. It's like, settle in for 6 hours.
You could track productivity. It would just like start to like cave in on itself.
Yeah. Smoking breaks will go up drastically. But you don't even smoke. Exactly.
I had to take it up.
Oh, I just feel bad for our main man, Marco, editing the audio. He has to listen to us in depth every single week.
Hell.
I feel like he's like,
Sorry, Mark.
you know the book The Girl on the Train?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's by a UK author. Hope you would know it.
I haven't read it.
I feel like he's like the guy on the train. Like he never, like I never talk to him, but I feel like he's constantly going past every week and seeing what do these people do. Let's see a window into their lives. Let's talk about Dustin getting kicked in the nuts and put it in the thing.
Yeah, I think he's probably my greatest motivation to try and make the show entertaining as well as informative. Because if you're listening to this for hours, nothing makes me happier than when he's editing and you just see him like chuckling away to himself. I'm like, yes, he's not like bored out of his mind by us.
Thanks, Marco.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Marco.
Do.
The world's most laid back man.
I feel like if I ever need a friend to talk to, I can talk to him. He knows me. He may hate me
intimately.
I mean, it's a pretty one-way relationship. You know nothing about Marco apart from the fact he's a chill dude. But
it's a very selfish relationship where I just tell him about myself.
Okay, so at the risk of staying on topic, passive income.
That was the best one-liner. That was such a good delivery. You can set it up.
Yeah, passive income. What else? Because we're giving people the gritty reality this week. Anything else which is kind of tough in your guys' mind? I think, honestly, for me, the toughest part is that it needs constant work and tending just to maintain. When I discovered that, I was like, I was sold a lie. This isn't what I expected at all.
I find it hard to detach my emotions from
that's what
the income stream. So, like, how I feel at the beginning of the month, like for 29 days of the month, I'm like biting on my nails, hoping that I'm going to earn enough money. And then on the last day, it's like, oh, it's okay. And then it starts all over again.
It is a roller coaster. Totally.
I think I largely started reading philosophy books because I realized I needed to reprogram the way I thought about the world in order to not be miserable with anxiety and negativity. Because when you own a business in general, you're watching other people, you're judging your self-worth by how much money you make each day. You can't live like that.
And I think in our what we do in our industry and how we make our money, I think it is super difficult not to compare your product or yourself to the other products that are doing well. Say you're having a bad month and there's other products that are really, doing really well. It's difficult to not go down a hole and think, but what's wrong with my stuff? Why doesn't anybody like me? I think it's hard. I mean, if you're a freelancer, you don't really get, as a designer, you're not really confronted too much with that unless you actually go out and look for it, like on Pinterest, and you compare yourself. But for us, it's like that's how you make a living. People buy your stuff because they like it or whatever they don't, and it is it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when you realize no one likes your stuff.
When you start watching other people and that's the reason you're doing things, you start to make horrible decisions.
Yeah, and you panic, and then you start churning out products that you think people will want to buy instead of actually what you want to create and where it comes from. And it's difficult to always know the difference between, is it a panic product that you're creating or is it a product that you actually really want to create?
Yeah, I know, Dustin, you can empathize with this. Sounds like you can too, Lisa. Ian, you're probably the most laid back one of the group. But I have had like literally dozens of anxiety attacks over the years doing this stuff. And I think it was a combination of like few big things happening. And I'm kind of sick today as well, or like certainly right on the verge of it. And I pretty much had one this morning and it had been a little while. And I remember I've thought it before, when you're in the midst of all that negativity and swirling around and stress and so on, you look at it and think, this is the least fucking passive thing I can imagine. Like this
Yeah,
isn't
it
this
is.
isn't passive income. You're there like having
No.
a panic attack on the floor. It's like,
Yes.
oh
Yeah.
man, I'm living the passive income dream down here, like hyperventilating.
Meantime,
You
you're
know?
in hell. Yeah. No, it's so true. But you know what the irony is? The irony is for me personally, but it's I mean it depends on everyone's journey. But my panic attacks actually stopped the minute I started doing this passive income
They stopped.
Really?
for a living. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I think it's because I finally trusted the fact that I could make a living out of illustrating.
Mhm.
I think before I was trying to the idea of it just freaked me out. I knew I wanted to do it, but I was so scared of it. So that's probably why I was having a panic attacks. I was basically denying my real life,
Right.
if I can call it that. And I think that's what caused all my anxiety. And the minute I chose this life, everything just got better. But that doesn't take away the stress of doing what we do. It's still very stressful and still.
I think something that it really helps with, and Lisa, tell me if maybe this is why, because I suspect I have an adjustment in how anxiety works for me since this, is that there's when you're not doing what you want to be doing for a living, there is this dissonance that's constantly running in your mind. You feel like time is passing. I'm not doing what I want to. I'm like not really. I'm just a part of a cog in this thing, and I don't feel good about it. And there's plenty of people that are doing things where they don't feel that way. But I was in a position where I did, and I think if you feel that way, it causes this dissonance, and that causes this anxiety that builds and results in panic attacks or whatever, or drinking or whatever you decide to do to try to relieve that. And I'm not joking, I did. And
I thought that was a little jibe at Lisa.
I know, so did I.
No. I'm talking about like me. I mean, I used to drink and smoke, and I still have panic attacks, but they're much better now. But then when you start doing something, you're like, oh my gosh, I get to see this whole thing made. I get the enjoyment of seeing that I'm recognized for what I'm doing. It just emotionally is like it shifts the entire thing.
Completely. And I think, I think I can totally get why people would still, I mean, obviously, as I said, there's still anxiety, but it's not at a level, it's a different kind of anxiety. It's more about, what stuff we talked about. But yeah, scary stuff.
Here's a question for each of you. What is the single best and single worst thing about passive income?
Single best is easy.
For me, the best is like having limited clients, so I can pick and choose the jobs I do because I've got this. My main income is making products. I still prefer having customers over having clients because
Nice.
That's
a really good one. How about the worst?
When you can't think of a product to make.
Wow.
You've especially
wow, that's okay, cool.
That doesn't
Especially
when
when
in
it
my
comes-
mind is a problem.
So
No.
I think it's like I go through like I come up with an idea and then I release products. The worst thing it can do is probably be successful because then I'm just like living in the shadow of like the artists do with the greatest hit, and you're like, I'm not. You think of something, you think that's just nowhere near the level of your previous one because they say you're only
so
as good as
personal
your
pressure. Okay, yeah,
and it's just like
yeah.
Oh no, what happens if I never think of another product? I'm not going to be able to make my mortgage payment. And
Yes. I'll tell you, for me,
no, that is
the best is there's so many. I mean, there's so many best things, so many good things. It's hard to nail one down, to be honest. But the best for me is I spent most of my life, I grew up middle class, and as soon as I was out my own, I could not afford anything. I mean, literally going out to have some Thai food for dinner with my girlfriend when I was in my 20s was a serious financial consideration. And I went on a trip to San Francisco last week, and I was able to see my favorite coffee shop and go in there without questioning whether can I afford to buy myself a coffee.
Yeah.
I like hats because the hair is going, guys. I saw a hat that I liked.
You look well tough with your shaved head now.
I saw a hat shop. There was like this $50 hat I really wanted. I didn't have to worry about it. I mean, I'm not like massively wealthy or something, but I mean, just to not have to constantly be wondering, how am I going to scrape by if I decide to go spend time with my kids and not work?
Yeah.
I know it's not all over if I do that. You know, that is such an amazing feeling.
How about the worst? Great
Nope.
bests, by the way. I like them.
Oh, it's amazing. It's such an amazing. Oh my gosh, the freedom is absolutely amazing with it. But the other side of that coin is that it all, in the end of the day, no one cares nearly as much as you do about it. So you have to constantly care. And you kind of have to keep perspective that things could be gone at any moment. You know, I heard this great analogy about we're all sitting at a banquet table and sometimes food is passed to us and we get to take some and then we get to take ours and then the plate gets passed and it's somebody else's turn. And I think just like you have to realize like things come to you, and I try my best to remember like things also go away to other people. Like that's how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So the hard part is knowing that it can be gone and that it's all on you, to you and fate.
It's a good one. How about you, Lisa?
Well, the best is by far the creative freedom that I feel every day. Like I don't feel bound. Like I don't have somebody telling me what I need to create or make. And that's amazing after coming from a freelance background where the client is king. So that's to me is like, I can't imagine. It's like the best feeling in the world, literally. And ironically, the downside is the fact that I love my job so much because I might be obsessed, and that's a slight issue. I think I spend too much time doing what I do. I don't think I have balance, and I struggle to find balance, and I know it affects everything. It affects my relationship with Cliff. It affects my relationship with, my friends, with myself even. I mean, I literally, sounds terribly personal, but I haven't been to the dentist in like a year and a half because making an appointment just means I have to go away from this. I mean, it's ridiculous, but that's what happens. You get so caught up in. I get so caught up.
So that's the
in
negative for you. The positive was the creative fulfillment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good.
I think I'm too attached to this. I'm too obsessed. Yeah.
I would say nothing wrong with that, but it can. Yeah, it can be everything within reason.
Yeah.
But I love how obsessed you are. It's a great thing in many aspects.
It is.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom?
So I would say the greatest thing for me is the lack of ceiling, and
the potential.
We've got an open air office, and that isn't even so much to do with money or anything like that. That's just what I love about this stuff, is that it can start with an idea and it can turn into something that like changes the world at its biggest point, but on its even less than that, it could become so much bigger than you ever dreamed of. And I would find it really restraining if someone's like, so when you hit here, whether that's money, success, like awareness, you cannot physically go past that. I'm like resistant to that concept. And so for me, the thought of it being like endlessly possible, it could turn into anything, is the most amazing thing. I would say my least favorite thing is probably the inconsistency of it all.
I wouldn't expect you to say that.
Yeah, I mean, like I could harp on about like the stress and how it affects your personal life and all that, but I guess a lot of that probably comes from the inconsistency.
Yeah, exactly.
And
what do you mean? Can you be more specific about inconsistency? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's like you kind of want to have your cake and eat it, right? So the dream would be that you have some minimum paycheck as if you were full-time employed, where you're going to get that no matter what, and you have all the security and none of the risk, but you have the potential for the unlimited upside and no ceiling. But that doesn't exist. So you have to operate in extremes of like highs and lows.
It is extremes. It's well put. That's
that's probably the biggest stress.
Would you feel the same way if you were on your own? I mean, the fact that you have staff, do you think that contributes to you
I would
feeling that you
feel
have?
in the same thread of thought, but it adds obviously stress when you're like, all of these people rely on
Yeah.
this to do well, and you care about them and their lives and livelihoods. Yeah, that adds stress. And that's when things are going well. When things are going well, I'm stressed out of my mind. Like I literally don't. You read about these companies like Zappos that I really look up to because of their customer service. I think they were doing so bad at one point, they had to fire the majority of their staff, move the entire office, ask some of their staff to work for like 1 to 3 months for free, which like virtually no employee, even the best ones, would be willing to do. They had to like beg, borrow, and plead to get them to do it. And then they pulled out of it and became really successful again. But I get stressed when it's going well with the uncertainty of it. You live in constant paranoia. It's like, I don't know if I could cope with something that drastic happening. And imagine that happening with like hundreds of employees. Hats off to these CEOs that just, live that.
I feel like you nailed like a really important point. Maybe the biggest point for me, and I suspect maybe for you too, Tom, is when you talk about the highs are even stressful. So like when I was starting my business, I was very stressed because no money was coming in. So you're stressed. Where am I going to get money? How am I going to get this to work? Why isn't this working? Will this ever work? Is it just all a lie and you can't actually do this? And then you make money and you're thinking why you're not making any and why things are struggling, that as soon as you do, things will be great. But then you find out that it's just an inverted version of your stress. So then you make money and then you think, someone's going to take the money. Someone's coming up behind me. Like someone's creeping up to take everything from me. Like this is going to be gone pretty soon. Like what's going to happen next month? Like what about taxes? Like what about if something pops up that I don't know about that's going to cost money? So I feel like
constant paranoia.
Constantly. Like if you make money, you're worried about losing it. If you don't make money, you're worried about getting it. It never ends if you're a neurotic like me and Tom.
and if you're not neurotic, this stuff makes you neurotic.
It does. And it's so true.
I think maybe that's a bleak but good note to end this 3-part series on, because I want people to go into the stuff with their eyes open. We've touched on some of the tremendous upsides. We've touched on a lot of the nuts and bolts and how to try and do it successfully. But I think it's good to end on realism, optimistic realism, shall we call it. It can be amazing. It can change your life. It's not going to be pina coladas on the beach, feet up, but it's going to be hard work. But it can be incredible. And I would say it's been a good reception so far to this series as it's been going out. And so if you've got any follow-up questions, hit us up.
Wouldn't you say too? There's a book I have, Principles, by I think his name is Ray Dalio, and he talks a lot about money, and he says, money is not the most important thing to me because the reason we get money is to acquire things. He's like, and the most important things to me are my friendships and my experiences. And those are two things that, especially with friendships, my money cannot buy me friendships. So friendships, therefore, are more important and more valuable than money because the money can't pay for them. And I think what I've realized, and I'm sure all you guys have realized, is whether you have a good month and make some good money or don't make money, that does not end up being the thing that makes you happy. I get way more happiness from talking to you guys on a podcast, than I do if I have a good month. I have way better time hanging out with my kids on a nice sunny day when we do something than a good month. Yeah. Or a bad month.
Yeah. I completely agree. Although just to be a cynic, I can't fully say this because I'm not a parent yet. Obviously I'm going to love my kids more, but in many ways I feel like Design Cuts is my baby. And so I feel like if things are tough, my baby's sick. I feel like if someone's trying to hurt us, they're like hurting my baby and that kind of thing. And that's kind of rough.
No, what about changing the diaper?
Yeah. No, that baby itself a lot over the years.
Exactly.
But it's getting there. We've cleaned it up and it's growing up now.
Vomited on you, pooped on you. Yeah.
Done the whole trip. Oh dear.
Well, it's true. Businesses are like babies. They don't take care of themselves.
Oh, they're useless. Yeah.
That's a good analogy, though, because
it is a good analogy.
Passive income doesn't take care of itself. Even that's the thing is, there's so many people on Facebook, going, like the drop selling, drop shipping and stuff like that, where it's like you can earn 6 figures by just setting up a Shopify
doing
shop.
nothing.
But the thing is, being realistic that things, when they go up, there is going to be come down again, and just knowing that you're in a place to, like you say, don't, just because you're doing well, just make
Don't
sure
get
that you've got
comfortable.
those. I know, like 3 months
Buffers.
Just have those buffers, because then, well, the good thing about buffer is that, like doesn't say go play with his kids and not have to worry about it. Is it's good for your mental health to put that in place.
Yeah, the
to
security.
not have to worry about it, because the thing is, like, I find that, like, there's an election in America. I don't earn any money in that day or something. It's Thanksgiving Day. No sales come in. And so you're like, as long as you, like, if you think, okay, I'm going to put some aside, or I'm going to have a stream coming from somewhere else, then it just sometimes alleviates some of the stress. So,
But yeah, for everyone listening, hope you enjoyed this mini series within the podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired to go and earn some passive income, but inspired going in with your eyes open. And do reach out. We're all over social media right now.
Yeah.
Honest Designers. Look us up, especially Instagram. And hit us up on there if you've got any follow-up questions. We'd seriously love to help hold your hand through some of the tougher stuff. I mean, not physically hold your hand, but, encouragement, support, that kind of thing.
Unless you live in Hawaii, you want to invite us over.
Yeah.
Cool. But thanks for tuning in. We love all you guys listening. You're the best. You motivate us to keep doing this. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
Very much so.
See you next time.
Bye from us.
Ciao.
Adios.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that you're feeling inspired to go and create your own popular digital product and start earning some passive income in the future. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes and Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the absolute world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.